The Xerion stellar empire had conquered 47 star systems in the past millennium. Their crimson warships moved through space like predators, leaving behind worlds either stripped of resources or reduced to glass. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, watching the pale blue world that his scouts had identified as the third planet in this unremarkable system. "Initial scans complete, Admiral," reported his tactical officer, a six-armed Nexari whose chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the bridge lights. "The planet shows signs of primitive civilization. Technology appears to be early space age. They have launched several small satellites and one space station." Kethvar's reptilian features curved into what passed for a smile among his species. The Xerians had evolved from apex predators on their homeworld, and their empire reflected that heritage. Conquest was not just their way of life, it was their nature. "Population estimates?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "Approximately 8 billion sentients. They appear to be a single species, bipedal, carbon-based. No significant space-based defenses detected. A few primitive missiles, nothing that could penetrate our shields." The Admiral's smile widened. 8 billion was a substantial workforce. After the usual culling to remove the troublemakers and warriors, perhaps 2 or 3 billion would remain to work the mining operations. This species called themselves humans, according to the intercepted transmissions his linguists had decoded. "Send the standard ultimatum," Kethvar ordered. 1 hour to surrender unconditionally or face annihilation." The communications officer, a tall, spindly being from the Zephyrian Consortium, worked at his console. The Zephyrians had joined the Empire after their own conquest 50 years ago, and they had proven useful for their natural talent with technology and languages. "Message transmitted on all frequencies, Admiral. The humans should receive it momentarily." Kethvar settled into his command throne, a massive chair made from the bones of some long-extinct creature from the Empire's capital world. He had given this ultimatum hundreds of times before. Usually the response was either immediate surrender or defiant posturing followed by a swift defeat. Occasionally, a species would try to negotiate, offering tribute or partial submission. The humans, however, surprised him. The response came exactly 37 minutes later. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human male in what appeared to be some kind of military uniform. He was older, with short gray hair and eyes the color of a winter storm. Behind him, Kethvar could see what looked like a command center bustling with activity. "I am General Harrison Mitchell, speaking on behalf of the United Earth Defense Council," the human said. His voice was steady, controlled. "We have received your ultimatum." Kethvar leaned forward slightly. Most species either groveled or raged when faced with conquest. This human seemed almost conversational. "And your response?" the Admiral asked through the translation matrix. General Mitchell's expression didn't change. "We decline." "You decline?" Kethvar's voice carried a hint of amusement. "Perhaps you misunderstood. This is not a negotiation. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to continue existing as a labor force for the Empire. Refuse, and we will reduce your world to ash and molten rock." "I understood perfectly," Mitchell replied, "and our answer remains the same. We decline." The human paused for a moment, and Kethvar thought he saw something flicker in those storm-gray eyes, something that made his predator instincts stir uneasily. "However," Mitchell continued, "I'm authorized to make you a counteroffer. You have 1 hour to leave our system, peacefully. Consider this your only warning." The bridge fell silent. Kethvar's tactical officer's multiple arms froze over his console. The communications officer turned to stare at the screen with wide, compound eyes. Even the normally unflappable navigation officer looked stunned. Then Kethvar began to laugh. It was a sound like grinding stone, and it echoed through the bridge. His crew gradually joined in, their various forms of laughter creating a cacophony of alien sounds. "You warn us?" Kethvar managed between fits of laughter. "Your primitive species warns the Xerion Empire?" General Mitchell waited patiently for the laughter to die down. When it did, he spoke again, and this time there was something in his voice that cut through the Admiral's amusement like a cold blade. "Admiral Kethvar," he said, and the use of his name caused a stir on the bridge. How had they learned it? "Let me tell you something about my species. We've been fighting for our entire existence. Not just wars between nations or tribes, but fighting for survival against creatures that wanted to eat us, diseases that wanted to kill us, and environments that wanted to freeze, burn, or starve us to death." The general's image was crystal clear on the screen, and Kethvar found himself studying the human's face. There was no fear there, no desperation, just a cold, calculating intelligence. "We've fought wars that killed millions of our own kind over pieces of land, over ideas, over resources. We've built weapons capable of rendering our own planet uninhabitable. We've stared into the abyss of our own extinction and pulled ourselves back from the brink through sheer stubborn will." Mitchell leaned forward slightly, and his voice dropped to barely above a whisper, yet it seemed to fill the bridge. "What I'm trying to tell you, Admiral, is that we are not prey animals. We never have been. We are the thing that hunts the hunters. We are the nightmare that even predators fear in the dark." Kethvar's laughter had died completely now. There was something in the human's tone, something primal and dangerous, that spoke to the deepest part of his reptilian brain, the part that remembered being hunted long ago in his species' evolution. "Your empire has conquered 47 systems," Mitchell continued. "Congratulations. But here's what you need to understand about humanity. We don't just fight wars. We study our enemies. We learn everything about them, their tactics, their technology, their psychology, their weaknesses, and then we adapt." The screen behind Mitchell suddenly changed, showing what appeared to be tactical displays and star charts. Kethvar's blood ran cold as he recognized ship configurations, fleet formations, even the layout of his own flagship. "You see, Admiral, your empire isn't as subtle as you think. We've been watching you for the past 15 years. Ever since you conquered the Altarian Republic, 3 systems over. We've monitored your communications, analyzed your battle tactics, studied your technology. We know about your fuel depot in the Kepler 442 system. We know about your shipyards orbiting Proxima Centauri b. We know about your supply lines, your command structure, and your strategic weaknesses." Kethvar found his voice, though it came out as more of a growl. "Impossible. Your technology is primitive. You barely have interstellar capability." Mitchell's expression didn't change. "That's what we wanted you to think. You see, Admiral, humans have a saying, 'Walk softly and carry a big stick.' We've been walking very softly for the past 15 years, building, preparing, waiting." "You're bluffing," Kethvar snarled, but even he could hear the uncertainty in his own voice. "Am I?" Mitchell asked. "Tell me, Admiral, how long has it been since you've received a communication from your supply convoy in the Barnard star system?" The blood in Kethvar's veins turned to ice. The Barnard star convoy had been scheduled to check in 12 hours ago. He had attributed the delay to routine navigation issues, but now... Or perhaps you'd like to know why your long-range sensors aren't detecting the patrol fleet you left at the edge of this system? Kethvar spun toward his sensor officer, a crystalline being whose entire body served as a living computer. The creature's normally bright blue light had faded to a worried purple. "Admiral," the sensor officer said in its musical voice, I'm not detecting the patrol fleet. They should be at coordinates 347 Mark 12, but there's nothing there except some debris." The bridge erupted in activity as officers checked and double-checked their readings. Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine, a feeling he hadn't experienced since he was a young warrior facing his first battle. 15 patrol ships. Mitchell's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. Destroyed in under 3 minutes. No survivors, no distress calls. They never even knew what hit them. Kethvar turned back to the screen, and for the first time in his military career, he felt something he had never experienced before. Uncertainty. Fear. "What do you want?" he asked, and hated how the words sounded coming from his throat. "Nothing," Mitchell replied simply. "We don't want your surrender. We don't want tribute. We don't want to join your empire. We want you to leave, now, and never come back." "And if we refuse?" Mitchell was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, Kethvar could hear the background noise of the human command center. Voices calling out coordinates and status reports, the hum of computers processing vast amounts of data, the sound of a military machine operating with deadly efficiency. "Admiral," Mitchell finally said, "you came here expecting to find sheep. Instead, you found wolves. The smart thing to do when you encounter wolves is to back away slowly and find somewhere else to hunt." The transmission ended, leaving the Zerian bridge in stunned silence. Kethvar stared at the blank screen for a long moment, his mind racing. 47 conquered worlds, centuries of military tradition, the pride of an entire species built on the foundation of their superiority in war. And now, a species they had dismissed as primitive was telling them to run. The Admiral's tactical officer broke the silence. "Orders, sir?" Kethvar looked around his bridge at his crew. These were hardened veterans, beings who had fought alongside him in dozens of campaigns, but he could see uncertainty in their eyes now, doubt creeping in like a virus. "Bring us to battle stations," he said finally. "Charge weapons. Prepare for orbital bombardment." If the humans wanted a war, he would give them one. The Zerian Empire did not run from primitives, no matter how many tricks they might have learned. But even as he gave the order, Admiral Kethvar could not shake the feeling that he had just made the worst mistake of his very long military career. The countdown began. In 58 minutes, the Zerian Empire would discover just how dangerous humanity could be when cornered. And across the galaxy, in monitoring stations hidden in asteroid fields and on the dark sides of moons, other species watched and waited to see if the rumors about the humans were true. Rumors that spoke of a race so terrifying in war that even their own mythology was filled with stories of their capacity for violence and destruction. The Zerian Empire was about to learn why, in the deepest corners of human space, there was a saying that had been carved into the hull of every warship humanity had ever built. "War is our business, and business is good." The first sign that something was wrong came from the engineering deck. Chief Engineer Vorthak, a massive, four-armed Croanian whose species had been among the first to join the Zerian Empire, reported that their primary fusion reactors were experiencing unusual fluctuations. "Admiral?" Vorthak's deep voice rumbled through the communications system. "We're detecting microfractures in the reactor containment fields. They appear to be caused by some kind of resonance frequency." Admiral Kethvar frowned. The Dominion's Fist was the newest ship in the fleet, its technology proven across hundreds of battles. Reactor problems were virtually unknown in Zerion vessels. "Time to weapons range?" he asked his navigation officer. 17 minutes at current speed, Admiral." 17 minutes. The human deadline would expire in 41 minutes, plenty of time to reduce their primitive civilization to radioactive dust and show the galaxy what happened to species that dared threaten the Empire. "Sir," the sensor officer's crystalline form had shifted from purple to deep red, indicating extreme alarm. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. They appear to be... Admiral, they're launching something." The main screen shifted to show Earth's surface. Across multiple continents, brilliant columns of light were erupting skyward. Dozens of them, each one blazing like a miniature star. "What are those?" Kethvar demanded. "Unknown, sir. The energy output is... It's unlike anything in our databases." The tactical officer's multiple arms worked frantically across his console. "Admiral, whatever they're launching, they're not following standard ballistic trajectories. These objects are accelerating continuously, and they're fast. Faster than our missiles." "How fast?" "0.7 light speed and climbing." Impossible. No known civilization had weapons capable of such velocities. Even the Empire's most advanced missiles peaked at 0.2 light speed. Time to impact? At their current acceleration rate, 8 minutes. Kethvar felt his predator instincts screaming. Something was very wrong. The humans had somehow managed to develop technology that surpassed Empire standards. But how? Their electromagnetic signatures had indicated primitive fusion power and chemical propulsion. Unless... "Full scan of the planet," he ordered. "Deep spectrum analysis. I want to know what we're really looking at." The sensor officer's form blazed brighter as it processed the command. For nearly a minute, the bridge was silent, except for the hum of instruments and the occasional status report from other decks. Then the crystalline being flickered, its light shifting to a pattern Kethvar had never seen before. "Admiral," the sensor officer said, and its musical voice carried a note of what could only be described as terror. "The electromagnetic signatures we detected earlier, they're fake, projected illusions. The real power output from this planet it's off the scale." "Explain." "Sir, there are massive underground installations across every continent. Geothermal taps extending to the planet's core, fusion reactors that dwarf our largest stations, and the energy collectors. They're harvesting power directly from their sun using orbital arrays hidden behind holographic projectors." Kethvar's blood ran cold. The humans hadn't just been preparing for 15 years. They had been building a war machine on a scale that dwarfed anything the Empire had ever encountered. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. General Mitchell's face appeared on the screen again, but this time he was wearing a different expression. The diplomatic mask was gone, replaced by something that made every warrior instinct in Kethvar's body scream warnings. "Admiral Kethvar," Mitchell said, "you have 6 minutes to begin moving away from our planet. I thought you might want to know what's coming for you." The screen split, showing another human, this one younger, wearing a different uniform. Behind him, banks of computers showed tactical displays and weapon tracking systems that were clearly far beyond anything the Empire possessed. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command," the woman said. "What you're looking at are 48 Ragnarok-class kinetic impactors. Each one amasses approximately 50,000 tons and is currently traveling at 0.8 light speed." Kethvar's tactical officer made a sound like grinding metal. The Admiral didn't need to run the calculations to know what 50,000 tons traveling at near light speed would do to his ship. It would go through the Dominion's fist, like it was made of tissue paper. "But that's not the interesting part," Admiral Chen continued. "The interesting part is the warheads. You see, humans discovered something about physics that apparently your Empire missed. When you compress matter beyond a certain point using gravitational manipulation, some very interesting things happen." The display behind her showed a computer simulation, a projectile striking a target, followed by an explosion that seemed to bend space itself. Each impactor carries a gravitational collapse warhead. When it hits your ship, it will create a micro-black hole that exists for approximately 0.3 seconds. In that time, it will consume roughly 80% of your vessel's mass before evaporating in a burst of Hawking radiation. Kethvar's crew were backing away from their stations now, their various forms of panic evident in their body language and coloration. The Admiral found he couldn't blame them. The humans weren't just threatening to destroy his ship. They were threatening to unmake it at the fundamental level. "Of course," General Mitchell said, retaking control of the transmission. "That's assuming they reach you. Our targeting systems are quite sophisticated, but space is large, and your ships are relatively small. There's always the chance they might miss." A pause. "Would you like to test that chance, Admiral?" For the first time in his 300-year military career, Admiral Kethvar found himself completely out of his depth. The Zarian Empire's entire strategy was based on technological and tactical superiority. They conquered primitive worlds, enslaved their populations, and moved on. They had never encountered a species that had been watching them, studying them, preparing specifically to fight them. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "impact in 4 minutes." "Admiral," the engineering deck called, "the reactor fluctuations are getting worse. I think they're using some kind of resonance weapon to destabilize our power systems." Kethvar looked around his bridge. His crew, warriors who had never known defeat, were looking to him for orders. But what orders could he give? Fight an enemy that could destroy them with weapons they didn't understand? Run from a species they had come to conquer? "General Mitchell," he said finally, "if we withdraw, what guarantee do we have that you won't pursue us?" "None," Mitchell replied immediately. "In fact, I can guarantee that we will pursue you if you give us reason to. But Admiral, let me be clear about something. We don't want your empire. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to be left alone." Mitchell leaned forward again, and his voice took on that same cold edge that had unsettled Kethvar earlier. "But if your empire decides that humanity is a threat that needs to be eliminated, then you will discover something that your 47 conquered worlds never had the chance to teach you. You will learn what happens when prey animals evolve into apex predators." The transmission showed Admiral Chen again. "Admiral Kethvar, your ships are now in final approach. 3 minutes to impact. I need a decision." 3 minutes. Kethvar looked at his tactical display, showing his fleet of 12 warships approaching the Blue World, the most powerful military force in this sector of the galaxy, ships that had reduced entire civilizations to rubble. And they were all about to be destroyed by weapons launched from the surface of a planet his sensors had initially dismissed as primitive. "Sir?" his tactical officer prompted. Kethvar closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships," he said into his communicator, "full reverse. Move us away from the planet. Emergency acceleration." "Sir?" His navigation officer looked stunned. "You heard the order. Get us out of weapons range." The great ships of the Zerion fleet began to turn, their engines blazing as they fought against their own momentum. On the tactical display, the approaching kinetic impactors continued their relentless advance. 2 minutes, Admiral Chen announced. The Dominion's fist shuddered as its engines strained to reverse course. Around them, the other ships of the fleet were doing the same, their formations breaking apart as each captain fought to save his vessel. 1 minute! The impactors were visible now on the main screen. 48 points of brilliant light racing toward the position where the fleet had been heading. Kethvar watched the tactical display, calculating angles and velocities. 30 seconds. "Sir, we're not going to make it," the navigation officer reported. 3 ships are still in the impact zone. Kethvar watched in horror as the kinetic impactors reached their targets. The destruction was unlike anything he had ever seen. The first ship, the heavy cruiser Eternal Victory, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a kilometer-long monument to Zerion engineering. The next moment, there was nothing but expanding gas and debris. The second ship, the destroyer Savage Blade, tried to use its point defense systems. The impactor punched through its shields and armor like they were made of paper. The gravitational warhead activated, and Kethvar watched a black hole form inside the ship's hull. For a brief moment, the destroyer's structure twisted and warped as space-time bent around the singularity. Then it collapsed inward and vanished in a flash of radiation. The third ship was luckier. The impactor meant for it passed just behind its stern, close enough that the gravitational effects tore away its engine nacelles and left it drifting powerless, but intact. In less than 10 seconds, the Xerian Empire had lost 2 warships to an enemy they had underestimated, ships that had survived hundreds of battles, crewed by some of the finest warriors in the galaxy, destroyed by weapons fired from the surface of a single planet. "Admiral," General Mitchell's voice cut through the shocked silence on the bridge, "I hope that demonstration was educational. You now have 1 hour to leave our star system. If any Xerion vessel is detected within 10 light years of Earth after that time, we will consider it an act of war." "And if we choose war?" Kethvar heard himself ask. Mitchell's expression didn't change. "Then you will discover why humans call this Sol 3, the third planet of our sun. But Admiral, before you make that choice, let me tell you about our sun." The screen shifted to show the star that Earth orbited. It looked ordinary enough, a medium-sized yellow dwarf star. But as Kethvar watched, the image zoomed in to show structures in orbit around it. Massive ring-like constructions that were clearly artificial. "Our sun puts out approximately 3.8 times 10 to the 26th power watts of energy," Mitchell continued. "Most of that energy has been wasted for millions of years, radiating out into empty space. About 50 years ago, we decided to stop wasting it." The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow, a Dyson swarm. The humans had built a partial Dyson swarm around their star. They weren't just harnessing the power of their planet or even their solar system. They were harnessing the power of their sun itself. "The energy output of our entire star system," Mitchell said, "is now at our disposal. Admiral, your empire has never encountered a Type 2 civilization before. You're about to learn why that's significant." The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar alone with his thoughts and the wreckage of his certainty. Around him, his bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for the retreat he had ordered. But he could feel their eyes on him, questioning, doubting. The Xerian Empire had never retreated. In their entire history, they had never encountered a force that could make them run. Until now. As his battered fleet limped away from the Earth system, Admiral Kethvar found himself thinking about the human general's words. About prey animals evolving into apex predators. About the difference between hunting sheep and encountering wolves. And for the first time in his long military career, he wondered if the Xerian Empire had finally found something it could not conquer. Behind them, the blue world continued to orbit its star, peaceful and beautiful. But now Kethvar knew the truth. It wasn't a world of primitives waiting to be enslaved. It was the home of humanity. And humanity, it turned out, was very good at war. 6 months after the retreat from Earth, Admiral Kethvar stood in the grand chamber of the Xerion High Command, facing the Council of Dominators. The circular room was vast, its walls covered in the banners of conquered worlds. 47 systems, each represented by the flag of the species they had enslaved or destroyed. The 5 dominators sat on thrones carved from the bones of extinct creatures, their reptilian forms imposing even in the dim lighting. Supreme Dominator Zekthul, eldest and most feared of the council, leaned forward, his ancient eyes burning with barely contained rage. "Explain," Zekthul hissed, his voice like grinding stone, "how the greatest fleet in the eastern sector was defeated by primitives." Kethvar had been dreading this moment for months. The journey back to the Empire's capital world had given him time to think, to analyze what had happened, to try to understand how everything had gone so wrong. "Supreme Dominator," he began, choosing his words carefully. "The intelligence reports were flawed. The humans are not primitives. They are a highly advanced civilization that has been masquerading as a developing species for at least 15 years. Masquerading? Another Dominator interjected. This was Velkar, younger than Zekthul, but known for his ruthless efficiency. You expect us to believe that an entire species has been hiding their true capabilities? Yes, Dominator. They have technology that exceeds our own in several key areas. Gravitational manipulation, energy harvesting, stealth capabilities, and weapons systems that we cannot match. The Council exchanged glances. For a civilization built on the principle of technological and military superiority, this was not just shocking news. It was existentially threatening. "Show us," commanded Zekthul. Kethvar activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. The recorded footage from his ship's sensors played out in three-dimensional detail. The Council watched in silence as the kinetic impactors tore through Zarian warships like they were made of paper. They saw the gravitational warheads create brief but devastating black holes that consumed matter and energy alike. When the display ended, the chamber fell silent. For long minutes, none of the Dominators spoke. Finally, Zekthul leaned back in his throne. "How many ships did we lose?" "2 destroyed completely, 1 crippled. The casualties included 800 warriors, including some of our most experienced officers." More silence. The Zarian Empire measured its victories in conquered worlds and enslaved populations. Defeats were so rare that they barely had protocols for dealing with them. "What do you recommend?" Velkar asked. Kethvar had been thinking about this question for months. "Supreme Dominator, I recommend we avoid human space entirely. Mark their system as a forbidden zone and focus our expansion efforts elsewhere." The sound that emerged from the Council was like the roar of ancient predators. All 5 Dominators rose from their thrones simultaneously, their massive forms towering over the chamber. "Avoid?" Zekthul's voice shook the walls. "The Zarian Empire does not avoid anyone." "With respect, Supreme Dominator," Kethvar said, fighting to keep his voice steady, "the humans have capabilities that we do not understand. They destroyed our ships with weapons we cannot defend against. They have harnessed the power of their star itself. This is not an enemy we can simply overwhelm with superior numbers." "Then we will learn their weaknesses," Velkar declared. "Every species has weaknesses. Every technology can be countered." "Dominator, we tried that approach. Our intelligence network spent 15 years studying them, and they were feeding us false information the entire time. They know more about us than we know about them." The third Dominator, an ancient female called Thaisara, spoke for the first time. Her voice was softer than the others, but somehow more menacing. "Admiral Kethvar," she said, "you speak as though this matter is concluded, as though we have already lost. But tell me, what did these humans actually do to us?" Kethvar frowned. "They destroyed 2 of our ships and—" "No," Thaisara interrupted. "What did they do to us? Did they invade our territory? Did they attack our worlds? Did they threaten our empire? No, Dominator, but they defended their homeworld. Nothing more, nothing less. They showed us their weapons, yes. They demonstrated their capabilities, certainly. But they did not pursue us. They did not attack our other fleets. They simply told us to leave, and when we did, they let us go." The ancient Dominator rose from her throne and began to pace around the holographic display, her claws clicking against the stone floor. "This suggests something interesting about human psychology," she continued. "They are not conquerors, at least not in the way we understand conquest. They are defenders. This gives us opportunities." "What opportunities?" Zekthul demanded. "Think, my old friend. What is the greatest strength of any defender?" The Supreme Dominator considered this. "Their willingness to die for their home." "Exactly. And what is their greatest weakness?" Understanding began to dawn in Zekthul's eyes. Their unwillingness to leave it undefended. Thesara nodded. The humans showed us weapons of incredible power, but they fired them from their homeworld. They have orbital installations around their star, but they are fixed in place. Their entire defense strategy appears to be based on making their home system impregnable. She turned to face the council. But what if we don't attack their home system? Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine. Dominator, you're suggesting... I'm suggesting we attack everything else. The humans may be powerful, but they are only one species on one world. The galaxy contains millions of species on billions of worlds. How many of those worlds can the humans defend simultaneously? The implications were staggering. The Xerion Empire controlled hundreds of star systems. They had fleets scattered across thousands of light years. If they began a campaign of systematic conquest and destruction far from Earth, what could the humans do? They couldn't be everywhere at once. But Dominator, Kethvar said, if we attack their allies or trading partners, won't that provoke them into... He stopped, realizing the flaw in his own argument. The humans didn't have any known allies or trading partners. Their deception had been so complete that they had remained isolated from galactic civilization. No one else even knew they existed. You begin to understand, Thesara said with satisfaction. We will not attack Earth. We will attack everything else. And when the humans finally reveal themselves to save others, they will be forced to leave their fortress. They will have to spread their forces across the galaxy to protect everyone they claim to defend. Velkar leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. And then? And then we learn how their technology works. We capture their ships, we study their weapons, we discover their weaknesses. And eventually, we turn their own capabilities against them. The plan was audacious, cruel, and perfectly suited to the Xerion Empire's nature. Instead of confronting humanity directly, they would force humans to confront them on terms of the Empire's choosing. There is one problem with this strategy, Kethvar said reluctantly. The humans claimed they have been watching us for 15 years. They know about our supply lines, our bases, our fleet movements. If we begin a new campaign of conquest, they will see it coming. Zekthul's lips curved in a predator's smile. Then we will give them something else to watch. The Supreme Dominator activated his own holographic display, showing the current deployment of Xerion forces throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of ships, dozens of fleets, scattered across 47 conquered systems. We will appear to be reinforcing our existing territories, he said. Standard consolidation after a military setback. The humans will see us moving ships and assume we are preparing to defend against their potential attacks. But in reality? Velkar asked. In reality, we will be repositioning our forces for a galaxy-wide offensive, not against Earth, but against every other developing civilization within 100 light years. Thesara nodded approvingly. The Altarians in the Vega system, the Centaurans near Proxima, the water-breathers in the Kepler colonies, dozens of species that are exactly what we thought the humans were, genuinely primitive civilizations with no hope of resistance. And when the humans realize what we're doing, Kethvar asked. They will face an impossible choice, Zekthul replied. Stand by and watch us enslave and destroy dozens of innocent civilizations, or reveal themselves to the galaxy and try to protect everyone. Either choice serves our purposes, Thesara added. If they remain hidden, we gain dozens of new slave worlds and the resources to build even larger fleets. If they reveal themselves, they become the galaxy's protectors, spread thin across hundreds of light years, unable to concentrate their full power in any one place. The plan was diabolical in its simplicity. The Xerion Empire would use their enemies' compassion against them. They would force humanity to choose between their security and their conscience. Begin immediate preparation, Zekthul commanded. I want fleets repositioned within 3 months. Begin with the weakest targets first, species that can be conquered quickly and completely. Make sure the humans understand what is happening, but make it appear as though we are simply resuming our normal expansion. As the council dispersed and Kethavar prepared to return to his ship, Thisara approached him privately. "Admiral," she said quietly, "you have doubts about this strategy." It wasn't a question. Kethavar nodded slowly. "The humans may be more dangerous than we realize, Dominator. What if they have capabilities we haven't seen yet? What if they can protect multiple systems simultaneously? Then we will learn that through experience rather than speculation," she replied. "But consider this, Admiral. The humans had the power to destroy our entire fleet, but they chose to let us leave. They could have pursued us and eliminated a threat to their security, but they chose to trust that we would honor their warning. And your point, Dominator. My point is that mercy is a weakness we can exploit. The humans believe in giving their enemies a chance to walk away. They believe in proportional response. They believe in fighting only when necessary." Thisara's ancient eyes glittered with malevolent intelligence. "The Zarian Empire believes in none of those things. We believe in total war, complete victory, and the annihilation of anyone who opposes us. The humans may have better weapons and more advanced technology, but they lack our willingness to do whatever is necessary to win." As Kethavar returned to his flagship to begin preparations for the new campaign, he found himself hoping that Thisara was right. Because if she was wrong, if the humans were more ruthless than the Empire had calculated, then the galaxy was about to become a very dangerous place. Across the void of space, automated monitoring stations hidden in the outer reaches of dozens of star systems began detecting unusual movement patterns in Zarion fleet deployments. The information was instantly transmitted to Earth through quantum communication networks that the Empire had never detected. In the depths of the Terran Defense Command, General Harrison Mitchell studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. The Zarions were moving, but not in the way he had expected. Instead of massing for an assault on Earth, they appeared to be preparing for something much larger. "Admiral Chen," he called to his colleague, "I think we may have underestimated how vindictive these lizards can be." Admiral Sarah Chen looked up from her tactical displays. "Sir?" "They're not going to attack us," Mitchell said grimly. "They're going to attack everyone else." And in that moment, both human officers realized that the warning they had given the Zarian Empire might have been the worst mistake humanity had ever made, because now the Empire knew that humans could be provoked into revealing themselves. All they had to do was give humanity enough innocent victims to save.